Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's going good. Going all right.
Good, good. So quick update on the I guess I call them pundits, but I don't know if that's the right word. The social media people.
Yeah.
So I got a hold of them yesterday. First off, everyone that responded to me, I think it was everyone but CJ, let me know that they're on board. They did ask though, but each one had kind of their own concern in terms of, for example, like Brandon Strada said, hey, I was actually, well, it wasn't even Brandon Strada. I think it was like an aide of his.
Uh-huh.
With the Capitol riots and things like that, some of them are under investigation, and some of them are saying that they think they might be under investigation. It's kind of weird to read about this stuff and then talk to some of the people that are, I guess, are being affected by it. Anyway, long story short, collectively they were asking for me to send to them what I had provided to the president, that they wanted to review it, to send them the link, and they wanted to review it. And then I would say between all of them, they said to reach back out again over the weekend, to touch base, answer any questions they may have had, and then go from there.
All right, so let's get down to it. So why are they concerned? They're concerned because they're under investigation with President Trump, I guess, and they're concerned that sharing your story is somehow going to get back to them because they're under investigation.
I think it's more about vetting, right? I think it's more about they have some negative spotlight on them, and so they just want to make sure that before they put their name to something, that they know what's going on. I think that's really the essence of what I was getting from it, was that they're already in kind of warm water, and they don't want any more, I guess, negative publicity coming their way. So they just want to double check and triple check that they're on, that this is legit, not something that is, like it turns out that I'm like a registered sex offender. I think that's what Scott said, was like, yeah, I just want to make sure that someone doesn't come back and say something like, oh no, did you know this guy's a registered sex offender type of thing.
I mean, did somebody say that? I mean, anyway,
no.
What I'm trying to figure out here, right? What I'm trying to figure out here is what is each of those people's specific concern. Like if you ask them, like, hey, I don't even know how the call went, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if you asked, like, hey, do you want some specific information or what, but
I did.
Types of okay, so what, you remember what they said?
Yeah, it was just, and again, I'm speaking collectively, so everyone didn't say this specifically. I'm just giving you kind of, I'm paraphrasing it for you, where it was more of can you just give us information about, your story, so that we can read up on it, understand it better, so that we know what, we can share via tweet or help you out in.
All right. Well, here's an interesting thing. And I'm just sort of speaking to like what thoughts somebody might have. So the MFR would be good, and I don't want to dissuade anybody from helping you out, but the MFR letter would be good in the sense that, these people like Trump, and, that letter was to Trump, whatever. But then like the other side is like, well, yeah, they're for Trump, but I'm worried that like them endorsing that letter or like being for your story, whatever, they're worried that by helping you out in that letter being associated with Trump, that's gonna hurt them somehow. And I'm trying to think that might either. Okay. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I don't think that was it all. So it was more. So what I asked them to do was I said, hey, in short, I've been on this uphill fight to resume service in the Air Force. And over 7 years, I have, over hundreds of thousands of documentation that I could give you. But what I'm trying to do is I got as far as getting close to the president's ear before he left office, in request for him to sign a memorandum to allow me to go back. And I said, I haven't been convicted. This isn't a criminal issue. This isn't an issue where I'm under any type of investigation or anything like that. I said that there was a letter that was in the process of reaching the president. It didn't get to him in time. So now all I'm trying to do is get this memorandum either to President Biden or to just get something to happen so that I can get back in to serve. And the only way I think that something is going to happen is both from strong advocates in the social media realm, people asking questions and echoing the same questions that I've had, and then advocates in the executive side, or even on the DoD side. Either way, the point that I'm making is that I can't do it alone.
Right. Yeah. I mean that was all good. My concern is, and I think you did that, is that when people associate things with presidents and getting things passed for they were a civilian or whatever, that they just associate that MFR or memorandum to a president with being pardoned, and obviously that doesn't apply to this situation at all. So
Right.
I'm just thinking that
and I made that really clear that this isn't a pardon. That there and I was almost pretty redundant in saying to everyone that this has nothing to do with a criminal case at all, and a pardon is only applicable to something that is criminal. And I said, so I'm not asking for a pardon. This has nothing to do with the Trump administration directly. It just so happens that my request was during the time of the Trump administration, and even before then. But in terms of this memorandum, whomever is in office, I really don't care. It doesn't have anything to do per se with the person that's in office specifically, as much as it has to do with whoever is in command.
Yeah. So that all sounds exactly how you should have said it. So okay, that's good. If you want, so what do you think's next? What do you imagine is the next maneuver?
Well, I'm going to touch base with them again on Saturday, see if they had time to review it.
Okay.
I don't think that there's going to be a problem. I think they just here's what and they didn't say this. This is just my feel on it. That they were shell shocked and are shell shocked with everything going on from the residual effects of the Capitol, and so they're just kind of almost like PTSD, where some of them are under an investigation, some of them think they're going to be under investigation. At the end of the day, they were all. What's that?
So why do they think they're under investigation?
Because basically there's a crackdown on anybody who was either A, at the Capitol at the time of the riots, or B, are strong, let's say, Trump supporters and were advocating to go to the Capitol on the 6th. They're all being looked at. So, for example, Brandon Strada he's I guess being charged with incitement, and that's why I was talking to his aide. He's being charged with incitement and had to basically lawyer up and prove that he didn't incite any violence or anything like that.
Who is Brandon guy? What does he do?
Brandon Strada, he is the founder of what's called a walkaway campaign, and he basically is a voice for people like disinfected, I guess, Democrats and liberals, who both hated Trump, say, in the beginning, and then between 2016 and 2020, walked away from the Democratic Party, maybe became independent, maybe became Republican, doesn't matter. They just walked away from the Democratic Party. That's kind of what his campaign was all about.
And when he's like a legislator guy,
No, just a big advocate. Just a big advocate. I think that he had his own little Twitter following that was in the beginning kind of bashing Trump and all this stuff, and then I think like a year into the Trump presidency, he had like an epiphany and then switched it up, and that's really what got, I guess, his name in certain people's mouths, is that he was a big liberal Trump hater, and then he became a Trump lover, and then for like 3 years went around the country doing this walkaway campaign. And he had a huge Facebook following. I mean, Facebook, I think he had like 2 or 3 million people on Facebook that would share their stories about, you know, being screwed by the man or by having faith in, you know, a certain political party, and then finding out that it was just a bunch of BS. So that was kind of what his...
What was the conversations you've had with Brandon as far as, like, you know, that's sort of on the lines of, like, sort of being screwed by the man? Because that seems like it might be something to play up and run parallel to, you know, the invisible hand that we're sort of facing.
Well, I didn't even have to say it that specific. I basically said, hey, look, I'm just at this point, I said, you know, and this was again in, I want to say the first time I talked to him was August or June or something like that. And I basically said, look, I'm being screwed over by just the system in and of itself. I don't have a voice. I definitely don't have a platform. And the only way I get anything to change is if someone helps me with this. And I think that was enough to just have somewhat of an echo to what he stands for and what his campaign stands for. I let him know that, look, I'm not, you know, this isn't a partisan issue for me. I'm just whoever I think that could help. I'm willing to knock on their door and see if it will open. I do think that President Trump will be more inclined to do something, because it seems like, and this is again way back when I first talked to him, I said it seems like he seems like someone who doesn't really care so much on what someone might say as much as he's just going to do what he believes is right. And I said, so, you know, if he finds favor in my case, I think that he might be one that would find or that would change things and allow me to serve again. Right. I mean, he was completely on board at the time. At that time, I let him know that, you know, I have a letter that I sent to the chief of staff. I hadn't gotten a response at that point, but I was reaching out to try to build some type of, I think it's right around the time that I first started talking to you as well, just trying to say, hey, can you help me get my story out and echo my voice? So that was the time. We left the conversation at basically when I got a response from the chief of staff to let him know, and if I had something that I wanted to share or whatever, to also let him know. I didn't do anything except for just kind of hold on to his number and his contact, because, again, I was waiting on the chief of staff to respond, and I didn't want to say something or do something wrong at the time. And
this is all the conversations you had with the Estrada guy, and right?
Yeah, so this was kind of basically the theme with everybody.
But you talked to him over the phone?
Yeah, well, not at first. At first, I hit him up on Twitter.
Okay.
They had their messages open. Then if they came to, so for example, Scott Pressler came to Atlanta, and I went to like one of the, I guess like he had like a cleanup Atlanta, cleanup Los Angeles type of thing where people just go around picking up trash. And so I went there personally to talk to him, and that's how I met him. I got his cell phone. For Brandon, I hit him up on Twitter, went back and forth a little bit on Twitter, and then got his cell phone number. For the rest, it was via Twitter or via Facebook.
All right, and the Estrada guy, you got his number and you were able to talk to him over the phone?
Yep.
Oh, sweet. All right, that's all good news.
Yeah, so everyone I'm telling you now, I have their personal cell phone numbers. So I'm not like hitting them up via message on social media. I'm giving you kind of like the conclusion of I have their cell phone numbers and you know, it's a text or a call. So it's a little bit more, I'm a lot closer to them than just like hitting them up out of the blue and asking them to do something.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm just kind of curious, like, you know, where we're at.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, I want to review a little bit. So what are their concerns, or what do I need to do anything? What do we need to do next as far as before the weekend goes? Anything like that?
So nothing yet with them. Nothing yet with them. I think we wait till they review what I sent to them. And then when I talk to them again over the weekend, then we'll have a better idea on what would be a move that maybe you should do or not do or what have you. We'll have better insight. I think that so that's just with them, right? The other thing that I was working on is Warnock and Austin.
Yeah.
And so I called the DC staff to ask them pretty much, hey, is there a local staff or office that I think there should be that I could, go and speak to and share my case. They let me know that they weren't quite sure where the new office was going to be because they said due to COVID reasons. I wasn't quite understanding their reasoning, to be honest with you. They were telling me it's like because of COVID, they haven't found an appropriate office yet, but they would within a week. It didn't make much sense to me.
Well,
so I basically...
My guess is with that, you probably weren't talking to somebody who knows what's going on, as in like somebody who charges the campaign, or they were just blowing smoke up your ass. I'm not really sure which is which.
Well, I think it's a combination of the two because I don't know if you know this, but when you're talking to a staffer, that's such a broad statement. Usually the person that picks up the phone is like an intern, right? And of course they're not going to know this squad. Anyway, what I did get was I asked them if I could speak to the deputy chief of staff or the chief of staff, and for Warnock, I got a tentative appointment for tomorrow at 2:00.
Whoa.
That I might be able to speak to their deputy chief of staff. For Asa, yep.
For both or for?
No, for Warnock.
Oh, he's the guy I feel like we should pursue it anyway. I don't know why, I just got a feeling about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so for Asa, I got and I'm gonna just reach back out to them again, but I just got we'll leave your number. We'll have someone go ahead and call you back when they're available. That's just blowing smoke, So I'm gonna call them back tomorrow. So that's what's pending with those two. With Alveda King, I spoke to the secretary of what was it? I have it written down. Hold on, let me bring it up. Can't find it. My computer's just freezing on me. Hold on.
You're good. So you said you were talking to Alveda?
Not Alveda personally. One of the secretaries.
Okay. I don't know if I'm around Wi-Fi right now, but I wonder does Alveda have a big following on Twitter or something?
I'm not quite sure. Let me see. Alveda King Ministries. Okay. So it was Alveda King Ministries, and I asked if I could speak to someone to briefly share my story and hopefully get in contact with Miss King herself. Tomorrow I'm speaking to one of the outreach or deputy communication directors. That's going to be tomorrow at 12:30.
Wait, with Warnock or with Miss King?
With Miss King. With Warnock, that's at 2.
With that Warnock, it's at 2?
Yeah, Warnock is at 2. Miss King is at 12:30.
Well, that's good. You got two really good leads tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, and I think so here's how I see it going. If Asif doesn't, if I call Asif tomorrow and they're still blowing smoke, I think that Monday or the beginning of next week, it might be something that on your end, I think, again, it's almost like playing dumb in a sense, but calling up to say something like, I'm just seeing, if this was you calling their office, you could ask them. I was seeing, if Asif had any comments or if he was going to or not do something on, this story.
I could throw butterflies in their stomach a little their way. I could throw them over.
Yeah. So I think that especially as a journalist, you're the voice of accountability, right? So I think at the end of the day, whatever they do or don't do, it's still something to follow up on. It's just a matter of, when do you follow up on? Well, also, I think I think that's worth doing on Monday. For Warnock, I think it just depends on how tomorrow goes.
Okay.
And for the rest of the social media pundits, again, we'll see how the weekend goes. But, Asif, I would just kind of pencil down for Monday.
Okay. Well, you're saying pencil in like you got it right now. I mean, maybe you do, but Anyway, besides the point, here's what I'm thinking. I zoned out a little bit while you were talking because I was thinking some. How do you feel about Friday? We sort of record that first episode. That way, when you go to talk to the influencer people on Saturday and whatnot, you'll be like,
Oh, I
"Hey,
see what you mean.
we
Yeah.
got this episode a little bit more. What would be the word? A little bit more uh, cogent to their understanding of what's going on, as opposed to, like a random conversation we had where from what I've heard, like sounds technical or whatever. But anyway, so just a straight episode, but just have it be like a conversation like we generally have, and do that Friday, and then that way Saturday you'd be like, I got something for the YouTube to send your way, da da da. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I mean, it
Okay.
gives them a reference point. It gives them, if we want to say, something along the lines of, hey, if you want to know any more background or anything like that, here's a podcast or something to refer back to. And I think that's a lot more digestible than, hey, here's 300 pages of documentation, right? So I think just kind of listening, when you're in the car, maybe you're on your way somewhere or something like that, that's a lot easier to digest than it is to say, hey, do you want to do some reading on redacted documents?
Right. And I got a little. So the thing that I sent you, I mean, you can also hear that same thing on Spotify. So I already have like episodes, not many people, so like maybe 30 people listen to it or something. But
Okay.
it's on Spotify, and so I got the same episode, or one of our past talks is on Spotify and YouTube. So I'm just saying we have that ability when they share, whether it's through Twitter or whatever, we can have a link to Spotify and YouTube and the Patreon too. So just for ease of use when people, I don't know, it's just something.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, and I think it's good. Again, I think something like this is, and I said this, from the start, that the difficulty I have is that all these systems and processes, they want me to send stuff, but I don't think that this is easily explained, especially when we're talking details, via electronic documents, right? Like there has to be a conversation, and so when it comes to the podcast and the platforms that it's on, I think it's vital for any and everybody that wants to actually understand it, because I don't think there's a better way to do so.
Right. In terms of what it means to, I hate to use the word market, something like this. I'm really uncomfortable with this idea, but let me hear what your thoughts are. When they go to tweet it, Facebook it, whatever, MySpace it, I'm wondering if there should be like the quick grabby title, like, here's a story about a government cover-up or something, because that sort of word seems to get attention because people these days love conspiracies. So I don't know, maybe.
No, I think that does play a part, right? Because look, at the end of the day, especially when we're talking social media or people who are associated with social media, I think they will jump first at the headline and then jump again depending on what's underneath the headline. But if the headline doesn't make anyone jump and say, "Oh, what is this?" then It doesn't matter how good the story is beneath it, because no one's actually going to listen or read it. So I think the headline, or putting a headline and having it somewhat catchy or something that people would be interested in clicking, is a fantastic idea. I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, I'm just kind of balancing the idea of like what approach I would even take, or what we would even get out of this approach, as far as if they would even put that in their tweet, like, hey, this is a government cover-up, or I don't even know how they'd word it, but maybe just like how you when you talk to him, like I don't know, like because it was kind of. I mean, it's not untrue to say it was not a government cover up. I mean, and I think what my problem is, what I'm struggling with here is maybe the reality of the situation, in that it is a government cover up, or that I don't know, like, are we right in the middle of history here? What's happening?
Well, I don't think, and I go back to the way Dave Phillips put this. There's a buffet of stories, and my difficulty has and always seems to be is that, you know, there's you can go right, left, up, or down, and you won't be wrong, right? And so if we were to say, for example, you know, you're saying government cover up, that's not to me much different than saying an Air Force cover up or a military cover. You know, it's still going to fall under the house of the government.
I mean, yeah,
yeah,
that's really
exactly.
kind of besides the point. I mean, just using the word cover up, I think I'm just uncomfortable with it because, you know, that sort of means that, you know,
loaded.
Well, I mean, it's not even inaccurate. It's just that, fuck. I mean, we're in the fucking right in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And to kind of give you a little bit of I guess, sense on it, you know, some of my friends who, and I mean friends that are my squad mates that, you know, I talk to from time to time, and you know, they're kind of, lack of a better word, in the know, both with me and just, you know, with their job profession. You know, I've had again, these are my classmates, some cases my best friends, would say things like, hey, bro, just make sure that, you know, you have your stuff on a backup server, and, like, you know, someone close to you, if you want to give it to me or something like that, that if anything happens, at least, you know, we can provide your story and whatnot. You know, so, you know, it's kind of like a, wow, it's both like, on one hand, like, that's you know, it's crazy talk, this and that, and then on the other hand, it's like, no, it's pretty real, but it's almost surreal to think that it's real.
Maybe that's the thing that I'm just struggling with. I mean, it's 100% real, and I mean, if
surreal,
we go for that wording, you know, I mean, I just think with nowadays, it's just really strange to think that, you know, people keep asking for, you know, something real, like a real story. And here we are, we're right in the middle of it, and we can offer it. I almost feel like what I'm struggling with is that from, like, an audience perspective, it almost sounds too good. It almost sounds too like I'm just gonna be blown, especially with, like, the media landscape to now, like how many clickbait headlines there are and how many, you know, people just blow smoke up our ass, like, it's just everywhere, you know. And I think that's what, like, for instance, I think I told you this the other day, but I saw a story in the New York Post that said, I'm pretty sure I told you, that a golfer uses F word at himself after missing putt. Like, why is that news? Like, he called himself a faggot because he missed a putt. Like, why is that? Why is that the most pressing matter? And I mean, I don't know.
Well, you know, and I think it's kind of linked somewhat to what we were talking about before when we were, you know, going over how words like racist or Nazi used to have meaning, and it seems like words that used to carry this weight have lost that value or that weight or that significance. And I think that, you know, that's pretty similar to what you're describing now, is the fact that, you know, it's a big claim to make, not to say that it's not real, but it's almost as though in the media landscape and somewhat in the cultural landscape, you know, these words and these phrases and these things that mean something have been devalued because everyone is saying it or has said it to something that was just kind of like BS. You know, there's a false equivalency to the wording and to the story. But I think that in a way, you're right. It, you know, it's kind of, it is a concern, but at the same time, I think it, you know, for those who actually take the time to read and wonder, what is this about? I think it will help restore some of that, because this is a story that is appropriate for the headline.
And I think that all right. So keep that what you just said in mind, okay? Because that's important. All right.
Hmm.
Like, can you actually repeat that for me, just so I hear it again?
Yeah, so that I think that keeping so that this story fits what the headline is, right? That this story isn't devalued or isn't clickbait or isn't about just seeing, how many people we can get to look at it, and then the minute they click or they start to read, it's, it falls apart or what have you. This is a story that helps restore the people's understanding or belief or trust in the headline because the story is real, right? So to help restore what the value of, in this case, a government cover-up actually means, or to restore the faith in the trust and the integrity from the reader to the author and understanding of the story, I think that even though there is a growing risk because people are abusing and compromising that integrity on the journalistic side and the social media.
So Eric, here's what you just said that you want, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that the headline should match the story. Okay, this is absolutely something. When you talk to the influencer people on Saturday, that is going to be, I feel like, their main concern. Like, where he's like, oh, this is government cover. Like, okay. Like, that's like the first chance that they're going to feel uncomfortable. I feel like that's what's going to happen. They're going to possibly feel uncomfortable at the idea of calling this a government cover-up. But providing that, that maybe that first episode will merit what we're talking about, that the headline matches what the story's about, or maybe the floating tip of the iceberg that you see, there actually is a real iceberg. It's not a joke. There is a concern under the iceberg. It's not just a little floating piece of ice. This is hefty. There is weight under the ice. So I don't know. Maybe that was a bad metaphor.
Yeah, it's not an ice cube. It's an iceberg. You're right.
Right. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I think you're right, but I think also the people that we're talking to are people that are more or less primed to see that, right? So these guys are both some of them are conservative, some of them are liberal, but all of them have this fundamental understanding that the system is broken, right? And based off of that perspective from both sides, they're more for Pete's sake, that's why they're saying, like, I want to make sure that that this is something worth putting our name to. I think that kind of gives credence to the fact that they don't want to just jump on any boat. They want to say, even if the boat is highlighting a failure in the system, they want to understand enough to say, yep, there's a failure in the system. You know what I mean? So I think it's more or less credence to them. And, I told them this as well, and I told them this from the very beginning. I told them, again, this most recently, is that, look, if there is any question or concern as to validating what I'm saying or wanting to know more about what's going on, I said I will give you everything, or give you the context, or give you the roadmap, or you can find your own roadmap. I'll give you everything I have to find it. The only thing I ask is that you actually look, because if you don't look for the answer that I can't give you or that you're looking for, then I don't. It doesn't mean that the story isn't real. It doesn't mean that it's inflammatory. It just means you don't want to look.
Eric, you could even play down, looking. Look, saying look almost means yeah, you got to dig. You'd be like, no, you don't have to dig at all. You really don't. Just throw your dart anywhere at the dartboard. You're gonna hit something. I guarantee it.
Well, no, I'm with you. Look, and this is kind of it's interesting because when I spoke to Dave Phillips, remember Dave Phillips was the first reporter in the very, very, very beginning.
I know.
Very beginning.
I see the Gazette Pulitzer Prize 2014 every day, and it pisses me off that They wouldn't even give me the time of day because of
Yeah,
this story.
yeah. Look, when I first spoke to him, Nick, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any. When I was first talking to Dave Phillips, I didn't have the FOIA documentation. I didn't have the things were still pending via the congressional inquiry. So what I told Dave is, I said, look, if I were you, I'd be like, man, this kid is nuts. But I said, take the side of the Air Force. And all I can say, because I can't show or prove anything, Brandon wasn't even speaking to me at that point, right? Like I had nobody. And I said, be biased against me. And I said, and go to the Air Force and just ask them questions, starting with, if this kid was so terrible, why did he get an honorable discharge? I said, just whatever opens, go down that road. And if you find that this is a story that could have value, here's my number and I'll be here. But I don't have anything to prove what I'm saying besides that. And he said, okay. And within 2 weeks, he said, I thought you were bullshitting me, but I really think that there's a story here. And then things began to unfold, right? So, it's the same thing. The only difference, though, right? The only difference is that people nowadays seem to have a lot shorter attention span, right? And so they're just quick to either say, I believe or I don't believe, regardless of facts. If the facts are there, maybe they'll believe it, maybe they won't, but they don't really care to go dig or look any deeper. And that's been challenging, right? So yeah, I 7 years fast forward, well, there is 500 ways, and I'm exaggerating, but there's 500 different ways now you can look at this story from different perspectives and find, without doing too much work, that it's real.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, just even I just want to say, like, when you're talking to these people, like, play it down. Be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong, but throw the dart anywhere you want at the dartboard, and I guarantee I will be backed up every single time. Like, if I made it this far and I'm wrong, then I gotta go to the fucking Gazette and burn it down because they do not deserve that Pulitzer. So,
well, I mean, not only that, like, I'd hope the CIA, reach out to me because I'd be some type of propaganda wizard if that was the case. Good God.
yeah, and you'd be a fucking master at it by now.
Yeah. Send me to Iran or something because, I'm all over that propaganda warfare.
Is this guy a Russian? Is he like one of those super special spies?
Yeah. I'll go to Columbia University, at the War College and teach you guys how to do psychological warfare.
Yeah, I guess so.
But at the end of the day, I think that I don't think that they're questioning it. I think what we're speaking to is kind of third and fourth order effect, because they're not going to give me their cell phone number if they didn't find some type of credence into it. I firmly believe that. I think what we're talking about more is the readers and starting to reach out into the masses, and I think that maybe because I don't think we're saying something that isn't really nuanced or really isn't partisan, because I think both left and right will both say that, oh yeah, the headline doesn't match the story all the time. And maybe in the headline or in the both, I don't know if this should be literal or metaphorical, but maybe it should be in the headline something along the lines of government cover-up, and then, your subhead is where the headline matches the story. Because I would click that. I would be like, oh.
But, I mean, even today,
exactly what I'm saying.
It's like, it's funny because I feel like from a traditional journalist perspective, having a headline like that, like government cover-up, like something along those lines, that's like traditionally like playing with fire. You don't say that unless it's actually true. And in the case of like Watergate, like or President Nixon, like you didn't say that kind of stuff back then unless it was true. And nowadays, I guess that's probably way more accepted. Maybe more partisan would be. Go ahead.
I go back to like the racist example, right? Like it's almost like a few years ago, if I said he or she is a racist, it would almost be like a gasp in the room, like, oh, whoa, well, that's a heavy claim to make. You know what I mean? And now. It's like I could walk down the street, you wear a certain hat, and I call you a racist, and people just look at each other like, okay. So it's almost like it's watered down with the government cover-up. It's like, everyone has been inundated with so much government cover-up, corruption, bureaucracy, X, Y, and Z, that before it carried weight. but both sides now say it so freely for whatever is going on in the media landscape at the time that it's almost like, you kind of shrug your shoulders and think, no, well, what's different from this than what someone else said a week ago,
Right.
and so I get it, but I do think
Hillary's a lizard person or something. Like,
yeah, yeah.
Which,
like
that might be
Hillary's
my
a
next story.
person.
I don't know. If this thing goes
Yeah.
well, I want to prove
I
Hillary is a lizard person.
To be honest with you, I think that's why people like Joe Rogan and whatnot are so successful, because although there's so much and some of it's crazy and some of it's real, I think what makes Joe Rogan so attractive is, he'll have people on that'll be like, so, have you read the headlines about Hillary Clinton being a lizard person? What do you think about that?
Yeah.
And so, things like that, it's because, there is, the headline doesn't match the story, and oftentimes there are some type, the best, I guess I should say lie is a lie that has some truth to it, right? And so oftentimes, whether it is a government cover-up or not, whether it is conspiratorial or not, there's always some grains of truth in it. And I think people still click, even if they think it's a crazy story. They still spend some time pondering it because there is always some truth to it. In this case, it's one of those where it's like, hey, look, there is all truth to this. There is redundance of facts in this. And the only difference between this and another story is that no one wants to provide any audience to this because of that, right? So it seems like the stories that are true, that aren't inflammatory, that have the facts, those are the stories that don't seem to see the light of day very easily, while the other ones just, kind of throw out there for whatever narrative it's designed for. So I do think that people today more or less are more open to seeing a cover-up, even with, less facts.
Okay.
Than what it is today.
Well, that's kind of scary. I mean, there's probably like two audiences that will probably reach. Hopefully, one big audience if we do it right. The two different audiences would be, this really is a government cover-up, and the other audience would be like, oh, this is a government cover-up, but whoa, this is way too much information or something. Like, this is. I wanted just to hear about lizard people, not like an actual thing.
I'm hoping it has the effect that have you been following the most recent story about what's going on with the GameStop and stock market and all that stuff?
I've just seen headlines. I haven't really given a shit or looked into it. But why? Do you know why? What's going on with that?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, what's going on is that hedge fund donors and stock investors will essentially do things where they'll find a business that is failing, and they'll buy stock in that business that is failing. And I'm just really in a nutshell putting this here. So what they'll do is they'll buy stock in a business that's failing, so that the borrowed stock, again, these are hedge fund type of donors and things like that. If I give you, here's a good example. If I give you $10 for one stock, and you go, okay, I want to make some money off of this, so I'm going to borrow the stock for $10. I'm going to go to the stock market. I'm going to find that business or whatever. I'm going to invest it for that $10. And if the stock goes under or the business begins to fail, let's say that their stocks go to 5, well then what I'll do is I'll sell it. That means that I'll get the stock back, and then I made a profit of another $5, and I'll give the other stock to whoever I borrowed it from. So what happened is that this Reddit community, a bunch of just average Joes who just do kind of like Cash App type of stocks, they found that this hedge fund, I think they're called like Melvin or whatever, this Melvin hedge fund, bought, I think it was like $50 million or 50-something dollars worth of stock in GameStop. Knowing that GameStop is failing, what they did was they borrowed it from their donors and said, we'll make a profit on this where we invest it at a higher number, and when it starts to fail, then we're going to make a profit at their
Hey,
failure.
Eric, let me
Yeah.
just pause you right there before you tell me the punchline. Okay.
Okay.
So, one of the themes that I've been like thinking about, and I sort of roped into it a little bit in that first article I sent you. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna. This goes back to like a literary sense of like Hemingway's iceberg theory. I'm just gonna sprinkle it in, but I think it's completely appropriate. Uh, Way of life in America uh, before 1970s, it used to be, you could get a car and a house and a dog and whatever, and that was based off, where you worked at, your wages, whatever. What story never got brought up, and it didn't get brought up, I think, because it was people were very hush hush about it. It was the idea of this like American casino. So the only people that can play in the game are the people that are wealthy. But the people that are wealthy, they're not going to risk their own money. Okay? Who are they going to risk? They're going to risk the people under them money, or whatever. Anyway, you've seen this story play out many times, but you may not have noticed it. In 2008, right before I was getting ready to go to college in 2009, there was a huge housing collapse. Go back a little bit after that, I can't remember. There was probably some other big financial disaster. I mean, and now they have Corona, and stocks went up while people were fucking dying in the streets, and they weren't able to like have enough money for food. Like and nobody's talking about that, and it all goes back to this idea of sort of the American casino in the 1970s, like where institutions, the banks started deregulating, and all the banks started, conglomerating together, and you saw that monopolizations of like mom and pop shops, like, you were a kid around the time I was a kid, but I mean, where I grew up, Walmart just ate up all the little mom and pop shops, like all the antitrust stuff and.
Oh yeah. I mean, I lived in a small town in Texas, right? So mom and pop stores were everywhere.
Right, but I mean, there was the money that people saw that they could make, through the stocks, as opposed and risking somebody else's money, looked far better in their eyes than the idea of like doing decent work and like getting paid for it. And the workers been given the rag for like about 50 years, and it's even more poignant now than it ever has been due to the Corona stuff. Like, where was the government? Where was the government bailout? What, they gave us one $1,200 check? Every other industrialized country in the world got like 90% of their wages, paid for by the government.
Yeah.
But in America, it's a casino, and if you don't have the money to play, then you're shit out of luck. But if you do have the money to play, ironically enough, you don't have to risk it. You can risk it based off the workers' money. And if you're wrong, you're going to get bailed out.
Yep.
So I've
well, that's
sprinkling that. Go ahead. You can tell me the punchline now.
It ties in exactly to this, right? And so what essentially happened was this Reddit community found that this Melvin hedge fund group was doing this with GameStop. And what they did was they said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to buy stock in GameStop. At the time, it was like $3. Mm-hmm. And they said, we're going to buy stock in GameStop. And what we're going to do is now if we buy enough, if there's enough collective action in this stock, well, then the price is obviously going to go up. And if the price goes up, that means this Melvin hedge fund group that spent $10 or $3 to buy that, one stock in GameStop, if enough people buy it, well, that means the hedge fund is going to owe money now, and they're not going to come out pretty much, benefiting from the failure of another business. And so what happened was this Reddit group started to do that, and it started to spread like wildfire. And what people were doing was they were saying, I'm not buying the stock, like almost like the casino analogy, to say that, maybe I'll get something, maybe I won't. They were buying it purposely to hit the hedge fund, the billionaires that you were describing that only risk the small people so that they can get the reward and with no risk. They basically said, well, we're going to give a big middle finger to that guy or those types and start buying in the thousands, hundreds of thousands in the stock. Well, when they did that, obviously the stock rose. So it went from $3, I want to say a few weeks ago. Now the stock is being held at over $300 per share. And so these billionaires that thought that they were going to, cash out, going straight to like what you were saying, now they owe money. And the number that I read today is that they owe over $70 billion with what is going on.
Good.
So this Reddit community that just kind of, it's not just the Reddit community now it's like everyone, is basically using the system to say, hey, screw you guys kind of thing. People are buying from the lower to the middle class. If you have $3 or if you're investing $50,000, everyone in kind of a collective voice is saying, I'm not doing this thinking I'm going to get money. I'm doing this to give you guys the finger. And the rewards that are coming from it, right? There are some people, and it's interesting to read. If you just kind of Google it, you'll read, articles on this that are coming out almost like hourly, where people are like, I have been, since the pandemic happened, since I was, out of a job, since I was out of pay, I saw this on Reddit or heard a buddy talk about it. I invested my last paycheck into it. It went up, and I sold half of my stock, and now I have food, even name brand food for my kids, and we're going to be able to eat this month or what have you. So there's like this residual effect that is occurring, basically because they're using and following the rules of the system to get the big finger to these one percenters type of thing. And I think that it ties into what they're calling it is the Wall Street protest of 2008 that I think you were talking about, 2.0. And in this case, the billionaires are freaking out. If you just YouTube some of this, there was a guy on today, I think it was on Fox News. He's a billionaire donor, and he was crying, basically saying this is wrong and this is whatever. And the effect, going kind of to my point, is this is something in which it doesn't matter if you're conservative or liberal, if you're Republican or Democrat, if you're rich or poor, middle class or poor class, everyone. I mean, it was crazy to see Ted Cruz retweet Ocasio-Cortez saying, I'm with her 100%. I mean, who would have thought, right? And
I don't understand, to be honest, what the hell is going on. It seems all very technical. I mean, I don't have the energy to invest my time looking into it, but
yeah,
it all makes
like
sense. Unless, like, shit like this comes to, like, a stop, or, like, we start putting in more trust laws and regulating the banks and whatnot, these cycles are just going to get more frequent. I mean, they have been getting more frequent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's happened is, this 1% class was just kind of betting on, well, the people are poor, the people are broke, and, it came out there sick, right? Like, this was something like never would they thought that a handful of people on Reddit would start investing into stock that would screw them over, because no one is as rich as they are, right? So it would take either a really rich person like Elon Musk or the collective of hundreds of thousands of people doing the same thing, both of which isn't likely to happen. Well, it's happening. And so they're in a complete panic. And the point that I was making is this is something that reaches far beyond any partisan lines. It has nothing to do with Trump, has nothing to do with Biden. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. This is about an issue that they're saying, yeah, the system is broken, the system is corrupt, and I'm going to put down money even if I don't see a return in fighting back against that system.
So here's how I imagine sprinkling it into, your story, or maybe I'd call it our story. I don't even know anymore. But it's that, I'm really pissed off, and I miss the idea of, that we sort of lost our American culture. Like, I'm a big follower of music. I love all kinds of music dating back. I thought the 70s was probably one of the best times for music. And if you just sort of read the tone of the music, post 70s things changed, and people couldn't put a finger on why. And then further down, there was the 80s, and I always hated the 80s music, and I could never pinpoint why, but now it makes sense. The 80s seemed to be like more of a delusional basis that things are going well. Everybody's in like high pump, stupid hairspray, tacky color things and whatnot. And then post 80s, you get the 90s, and then I think there's like maybe a realization that that people are maybe living under a solution. Then you get bands that are all sad, like Nirvana and Eddie Vedder, and just sadness. And then now there's like the track where people are just like, there's an explosion of like differences, but everything sort of sounds the same. And that seems to be that, and I'm just thinking of this now, that, we can't keep being sad all the time. We got to do something different. But at the same time, it comes off different, but at the same time, the overall tone sort of sounds the same. But the way that I'm sprinkling is like, I fucking miss the fact that there used to be like culture in this country. And it used to be that, if you just worked hard and whatever, you could actually get what you wanted. You can actually like live the American dream and whatnot. Yeah. But now you got to be wealthy just to get into the club. It used to be anybody could get into the club. Now you got to be wealthy to get into the club. And when you do get into the club, you could do it on the backs of the people behind you that can't afford to get in. You can take their money and risk it at the club, but you don't have to risk any of your money yourself, which just it's just crazy to me. It's insane. You can't imagine that.
Well,
it's got to lead to something, obviously, and it has.
Yeah, and I think because back then it was more about your character. It was the American dream is built on this idea, or part of what it's built on is this idea of the strength of your character will dictate how far you go in this country, right? If you put in the work, if you put in the time, if you make the sacrifices, you will make it, right? Because that's what we value. That's what we look. That's what we would reward. We would reward you going out on a limb, putting in and sacrificing all the necessary resources to make something happen. You will be rewarded for that. Now it's more or less about you will be rewarded for the sacrifices of others that you put out. That's what will get you to the top, right? It's not so much about you, but who can you either expose or exploit, or what loophole can you find? That's what's going to get you ahead. It's almost like we became too, and I always go back to this, we're almost like we're too spoiled, right? Because it's not dictated on the character of who you are anymore. It's dictated on how much you can get away with. And that's what's going to get you to the top, right?
Well, I think
the dream turned to a nightmare.
I think there's only two modes of getting ahead left in America nowadays, and I think, one is if you're good at selling. If you could sell like a high ticket item and you can make money that way, that's one way to get ahead. The other way is to invest in the stock market. I think those are to gamble, basically gamble with other people's money. If you're on the top, if you're like Berkshire Hathaway or whatever those big investment firms are. I don't understand how that stuff works, but I understand enough.
Well, I think on top of that,
to get ahead in this country.
I would say
Selling
the third way is going to be who you know.
But that still seems to fall into like investing, and generally, if who you know, well, I can't say that in your case because you've managed to know a lot of people, so I do think I'm wrong in that aspect. But I just imagine like Hunter Biden's kid or something like, who he knows, he'll be able to get in contact with pretty easily, and it just sort of feeds itself into a loop, and where the old adage, it's probably a new adage. Maybe it's an old adage. It is an old adage, but it's different in tone now. Is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? It's true, but it's different than it was back then, and it's different now, in that rich begets rich, in the sense that you invest in stocks, whatever you invest in, and then you're able to get more rich. Where if you're poor, well, fuck, man, you're not going to have any money to invest in. You're not going to be able to risk somebody else's money in the process either. You're just going to be risking your own money, which is not the case with all those other people.
It's almost like it's like a dull knife in a way, right? Because look, if you were poor 50, 60, 100 years ago or whatever, it would hurt, and not just hurt in the sense of physically, right? But there was a more distinctive separation between, and I'm not saying that there isn't now, but what I'm saying is that the threshold for those who have less than, right, those who are, you're poor, low middle class, middle class, upper middle class, it's different now than it is back then. There are more.
Back when?
Than say 60 years ago, right?
Like so 1950s.
Yeah, 1950s. Going forward, even you could even go back 20 years ago, right? Between technology, between the and I know I said this before. I don't know of many other countries or cultures that have an obese or at least overweight homeless population like we do in parts of LA, right? I think that it's in what we have here is that we have a class of richness that is unseen, I think, in human history, to be honest, right? I mean, I think that's not too far to say that your 1%, your really rich people are really rich, right? More so than others.
Yeah, and it pisses me off because I keep going back to this because it really pisses me off. I miss culture. I miss, people to be able to make a decent wage and not be hounded by a boss, for 6 days out of the week of their life. Like, they have time to go home and spend time with their hobbies and make great music. I mean, that's how we grew as a culture, is because people had a little bit of money, a decent amount of money, and a decent amount of time. And now you got to fucking work 10-hour days for $15 an hour when eggs cost $300 or something.
Yeah. Well, but like, I don't think that it would. I think it's where the conspiracy types go, where they say it's by design. I don't think it's by intentional design. I think it's just by kind of a natural evolution of things. But what you have
no. It's by design. 100%. It's by design. Like, these people knew what they were doing when they set up the system.
No,
they did.
1,000%. What I'm saying is, and I guess I was giving a framework to say that I don't think it's by design that both with technology and the fact that people can or do not collectively push something like they used to before, is more of just kind of a natural evolution of things, right? Because back then, I think that you would have more of the masses on the same page to say, hey, the system is broken, or the system is working and this is what we like about it, all kind of working in unison. Today, it's fragmented to the point where even if you are someone who's like, yeah, the system is broken, unless everyone is doing something to try to fix the broken system, nothing will change, right? And I think that today you have more people who are complacent in saying, yeah, the system is broken, but I'm just going to go ahead and get on Instagram or Twitter or whatever and dislike what I hate about the system or whatever, then actually do something, then that separation grows. And those, the very top think, yeah, we know you don't like us, but, hey, here's this new app. Go ahead and get distracted. Or, yeah, we know you don't like us, but, if we put the carrot just enough in front of you to make it think like you're about to get ahead, well, then, that will suffice for long enough. You know what I mean? So it's the voice that would push back on that pushed back on it in the 70s, which would be more of a collective mindset to say, hey, shit is messed up, isn't the same today. Today, it's more like it's fragmented, right? And it becomes even more fragmented when you put in the political side of it. And it becomes even more fragmented with the identity politics. Like, the Wall Street protest that was happening in 2008 was on the brink of really having some change come behind it until identity politics started.
I'm not that optimistic. I don't think so at all.
You think so?
I don't think so.
Oh, you don't think so?
Not at all.
I don't think. Why do you think?
Well, that was all political. These people that are in that class that are making money in the stock, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit what politics you throw at them, and they're just going to keep moving the goalposts like we've talked about in other aspects of our institutional talk. Like, they're just going to keep moving the goalposts. They don't give a shit. Unless you actually point out to them, like, what's going on, and like a bad dog, like you hold their nose in the shit when they shit on like your new Persian rug or something, or whatever, Unless you like hold their nose in it, like they don't give a shit, and they really don't care. They honestly think, in my opinion, I think they think that they're better than other people. Like, well, this guy knew what he was doing. He would be where I'm at, and that's sort of how people talk nowadays. Like, well, if you fucked up, it's your fault. There's, they still go along with like this idea of like, you just gotta, I don't want to use the expression, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but like, they just this
well,
idea
the difference
that,
is
like,
now
if
it's
you
like
fucked
there's
up,
no
it's your
bootstraps
fault.
to pull up. The difference now is like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but there's no boot to pull up. That's kind of the problem. Is like, the bootstrap analogy was meant to be like, put in the work, get to work, put in the hard work, and you'll reap the reward. Well, today it's like, hey, look, the work isn't rewarded anymore. That's the problem.
Or you can't even work. You're not allowed to work.
Yeah,
but yet,
so you're not even allowed.
But yet, you're not allowed to work. But yet, the stock market makes money. And this is like the dichotomy that I'm trying to play up here, is that there is a definite split between, those who work and then those who invest. That is completely, those are the two classes left in America. That's it. There's no more gradient of classes. And you used to live like that. There used to be like different ways you could live. Now there's only two. You can either invest and make money, or you can work and be poor. Those are basically, or get good at sales. Fuck, that's your other option. You can learn how to tell great stories and make money that way.
I still remember, and this is coming like from my grandmother and grandfather, where they would say things like, they would work and have enough money to save, to build a savings account that would be, enough to give to their grandchildren or whatever, to kind of set them up. Nowadays, people are so either paycheck to paycheck or not even paycheck to paycheck. They're wondering, if the next month they're going to be even having a roof. It gives you an idea of just how far we have left this I guess, system in which you could work enough, get enough that you could make it not only for your dream, but have enough for almost like a legacy, right? Enough to invest into your grandchildren and so forth. Now, you can't even get a name brand food in your pantry, right? And I don't know, I really don't. How do you fix that? How do we fix where we're at? I think on one end of the...
It's easy. It's not hard. It's easy. You got to put antitrust laws. You got to hold these fucking people accountable. You can't just say that, we're going to make all these bad investments in the housing market, knowing full well that you are, and then when the whole system fucks up and you want to get a bailout, You don't bail out the people that fucked up. You bail out the people that were victims. You bail out the fucking people that were in the housing market and whatnot. The people that paid for these houses.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head when you said accountability. See, my thing is like, I don't know if writing new laws would work because I don't think
Eric,
people accountability than what they got.
It goes back to the thing where like those people are paying money to get into the club. They're paying money to get into the casino on your dime. All right?
Yeah.
And they're gonna risk your money to get in the casino. Well, if you're doing that, then you're gonna have to be held accountable. You're not gonna like get bailed out and like you get all the money back that I risked. No, it doesn't make any sense. I risked that money. Okay, that was my money that you took.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get the money back that you took from me?
It's almost like two forms of government if you think about it. It's like you have your federal side that's taxing you, right, and using that money. Then you have this other, let's say, investor government that is using your money for their own personal wealth.
It's
other.
Fucking maddening. It's fucking maddening that during this whole stimulus thing, we only got one $1,200 check. I've had to fucking starve this year. I've been fucking putting ramen and eggs together like the best I could. And these fucking people, the stock market's doing better than ever. It in a just world, it makes no sense. It makes perfect sense how it happened, but in a just sense, it makes no sense because the barrier to entry. And here's the thing with the journalism, like. If you look at any journalism nowadays, it's all fucking people that go to NYU. That's not what journalism is about. It's not people. It's about the people from the bottom holding the people at the top accountable. That was always the agreement with journalism. Not that you're able to spend $100,000 on a scholarship. No, or whatever. I'm very impassioned right now. I apologize. I'm not talking clearly.
No, you're spot on. Look, I'll put the cherry on top for you because I think what's happening right now with the GameStop issue is exactly what you're saying. Because you want to talk about bailouts, you want to talk about giving $1,200 to the American people for the last 10 or 11 months as a replacement for their paycheck, and then helping out the likes of, say, Delta, and helping out the likes of, say, Amazon is getting a fatter wallet, by the minute. Look at what's happening right now. You have these hedge fund guys who are literally crying on TV, and the new Secretary of Treasury came out and said that they're going to consider what the Fed can do to help bail them out. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's exactly what you're talking about. Here are the people playing by the rules in which these hedge fund guys set. The hedge fund guys are losing, and now the person who just took over the Secretary of Treasury, who is by if you read who it is, her name's like Yellen or something like that, actually got a speaking deal for these exact type of hedge fund donors, is looking at ways in which the federal government can help bail them out. And the talks of the next stimulus checks are where again? Where are the talks of everything that everyone was talking about the Biden administration was going to promise? It certainly wasn't bailing out hedge fund guys.
Hey, Eric, I got to go to jiu-jitsu here in about 5 minutes. But,
okay.
Here's what I want. Can you go actually ahead and send me that link to that Reddit thing? Because now I'm kind of... So if you know that Reddit link, go ahead and text me that. Then... what are we gonna do? Or so Friday, let's record. I'll text you. We'll figure out a time. Actually, let's just do it now because I'm gonna be too frantic.
Okay.
Can we do it 5 o'clock Mountain Time on Friday?
That'll work.
Okay. And I don't. What do we? Is there something else we need to do next, or am I missing something?
I'll have an update for you for Warnock. And then over the weekend, we'll have an update on the social media types. And right now, we're penciling down Osif for Monday for your end.
Okay. And so for the weekend goes, and for those influencer people, I guess, I just really want this thing to go through. I just really want this, like...
Well, I hear you. Yeah,
I just really want them to, like, just post those links and get it done. But that's the weekend. So I'm guessing that we do this episode Friday, and then we can get those. Do you think those people will put the links up over the weekend? They'll get it done.
Yeah, I mean, if they're comfortable with it, it's just going to be the request that I have on the table is, hey, can you just share or send out to your following this, and I'll type it up, I'll put in whatever, so we can work on that, and just have them share it and post it.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 5 o'clock then.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you later, buddy.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.